I'd love for you to share a bit about some of what you portend or you anticipate for the coming year and years as you look into your crystal ball. Jamie, what do you see? What's happening in the retirement space as we enter this brave new world?
Yeah, so let me I'll start with something that ties back to some of that, and it's the conversations about lifetime income and pensions, and that's going to become a more important conversation in the next 5 years than it's been for the last 5 years. And the reason is, we're entering this time period where soon our retirees will start retiring without most of them relying on pensions. There's still a lot that do today, right around the 65 to 70. But that break starts to occur because in the 90s and 80s, pensions started already in early 90s to fade away. And that's been the core of our retirement system is pensions and social security. And that's creating that paycheck that we mentioned about in retirement when we don't earn it anymore. And we're going to put this onus, which has been culturally and societally a movement, which is putting the onus on retirement and retirement income and savings on the individual, right? We've shifted from pensions and government to individual responsibility here. The problem with that is it's kind of a giant, societal experiment. We don't know if it actually works yet. We haven't seen it. And all of a sudden, that gets a little worrisome. So there are a lot of economists out there that said, this is going to fail. The 401k being the system without annuities, without lifetime income, with potential cuts to Social Security is going to get really ugly. And where it's going to get ugly is not that people won't be able to meet some basics, but their standard of living will cut back substantially, that they'll stop spending. People are actually better than we give them credit for adjusting to, pullbacks in income. They cut their lifestyle back. We do. We're better at that than we get credit for. But that doesn't mean we created a good life for people. We just have a bunch of people that can't spend, can't do things they want, aren't traveling, one of my friends, Dr. Barry Sachs, always said, people start eating cat food and dog food in retirement, right? And that's not really what we want. And, that's true. That's what Americans do today. When they run out of money, they just cut back tremendously. And then the downside of all of that is what happens. We become very reliant on Medicare, on Medicaid. We become reliant on, other systems that are not necessarily the most efficient to, kind of get people through. And so creating better financial literacy and financial independence helps reduce the reliance on government funded programs. So there's this always mix of how far do we go one way or the other. And I think we probably swung too far one way. This year will be really interesting. We're going to get a really, really bad Social Security trust fund report this summer. Okay. And I've been trying to talk about this ahead of time because it's going to feel scary. It's not a surprise. What happened in 2020, we had 20 million Americans close out the end of the year without jobs, which means they're not paying Social Security taxes, which means the system's not being funded. We lost 3 or 4 years in 2009 for the funding. We might lose 4 years again due to 2020, and that report comes out this summer. So we're going to see a report saying, hey, this fund is going to run out of money in 2035, go down to maybe 2030, 2031, wow. And that's going to feel scary, because now it's within a decade. And so I'm trying to get ahead of that, but that's a big deal, and it's going to start to influence policy and decisions and taxes and planning soon. I think it's been a little muted the last 5 years. People still said, hey, it's okay. 2035 is a while away. Well, 5 years later, and then we lose 5 years, it's a lot closer.
Right. What a difference 1 year makes when you lose five. Incredible. What other, yes, you're right. And in fact, that's part of what I guess is prompting the Boston College Center for Retirement Research to mention that basically half of all Americans won't be able to keep their current standard of living in retirement. I assume a part of their assumptions are this underfunded Social Security system. What happens? So paint the picture of 2030 or 2031. Are we going to just not have Social Security? Is it going to just be a muted number? Are we just not going to get a COLA? Or just describe, what do you see happening once we truly run out of the funds?
Yeah, and I'll take a half step back and we'll get there. The first part is just to express how important Social Security is for retirement in this country. It is actually lost on a lot of people because it's been around. Basically, everyone who's alive today, right, that was in a workforce is paid into Social Security. They've been a part of it. They've experienced it. And it covers almost everyone. It's like 96% of the workforce now pays into Social Security. It's everyone. It's probably the single most efficient financial instrument that's ever been built. For all the problems with it, it is incredibly efficient. It runs with less than a 1% overhead cost. Think about a company that could run with less than 1% overhead cost. They don't exist, which means it beats out all the comparable products that are out there in the annuity world. It always does. Every analysis is ever done says, hey, it's better. It doesn't have this built-in overhead. When you look at Americans, right, you mentioned that half number, right? More than half of Americans, right? It's almost 2/3. It's a little over 60%. More than half of their income comes from Social Security in retirement. For 1/3 of Americans, it is over 90% of their income comes from Social Security. So say, hey, Social Security could go away. That's true if you're okay with more than half the country being completely destitute in retirement, not being able to meet their rent, their food, their medical. Well, what would that do? That would actually collapse the economy. So, like, we actually don't have a system that's set up for Social Security to go away. Could you rename it? Could you change it? Absolutely. We're on a trajectory, and essentially we're there now, but we're on a trajectory where Social Security, with the current funding level, with the number of people we have in the workforce, with the number of retirees we're going to have, the current system won't keep it funded. In essence, it's a math problem, though. We take in money, we pay out money. It's fairly simple on that side. We can do one of two things. We can increase the money coming in, or we can decrease the money going out. That's it. There's not a whole lot else to it. It's already the most efficient system in existence, right? There's no research and development. There's no marketing and sales, right? Like, it's a very simple system that provides lifetime income to people based on kind of, having almost everyone as part of it. So it's very efficient. What happens when the funds run out is, by law, we essentially cut back to the amount of money that's coming in based off payroll taxes. So about 78% of promised benefits to 75% will be able to be paid based off what would be coming in under the current system for the foreseeable future, next 60 to 80 years. So can we meet 3/4 of the payments? Yes. That's by law what happens if we get to that point where we have less money coming in than going out and the funds are depleted. So what's ahead of us right now is, we've got President Biden just came in office on the 20th of January. We've got part of his tax proposal when he ran for office was fixed Social Security funding. He ran on a proposal that would add Social Security taxes back on at $400,000 and over. So between taxable wage base, which is right around 143-ish in 2021, and $400,000 of income, you wouldn't pay anything into Social Security. Once you get $400,000 and $1,000, right, you would start paying Social Security taxes again. You wouldn't accumulate nor benefits, but essentially it's funding the system. All of the plans that have been floated that he's talked about, some people have done analysis, that's the single biggest tax of all the policies talked about. So when people say, hey, there's a tax increase, there would be, but the provision is funding Social Security, if you're going to get very honest about it. But also remember, Social Security is our single biggest tax as it exists today, right? From a revenue perspective, it is our single biggest funding program in existence. It's not military. A lot of people always say, well, how much money you spend on military? Military is not even close to what we spend on Social Security and Medicare. Those are our largest two government programs in existence.
Fascinating.
So, a lot of pieces, but that is where we are right now.
Wow. Well, it's an anathema to me that it's the most efficient system, and yet it's about to go broke. I don't get that. But you're exactly right. You're exactly right.